In the world of Jeeps, commercial trucking, classic cars, and motorcycles, the LED headlight has become a hot topic. My name is Chris with Headlight Revolution, and in this video, we are talking about 7-inch round LED headlights. We're going to compare the options for you through objective comparison with measurements and manufacturer's public specifications. We will also do our own testing by setting the lights up in our stand at 25 feet from the wall to keep them all at the same distance and height. And while indoors, we can show you the beam pattern against the wall, and while we're doing that, we'll measure lux using this digital light meter. In front of me is a new style, pretty unique headlight. It comes from China. We actually saw this headlight for the first time before anybody started branding it at SEMA in 2014 by a Chinese exhibitor that had come to the show in Las Vegas. And right away, I knew that we had to get our hands on one of these because it was pretty cool. So right there at the show, we ordered some up and tested them, and they've actually made some changes and updates since then. And in fact, you can find it on any Chinese seller's website like Alibaba, eBay, or Amazon. It's a generic headlight created for anybody to brand, but it's a really unique style. The thing I actually like about this headlight is they didn't copy an existing design. Somebody at the company overseas actually had an idea of their own and created a whole new headlight design based on what they thought would be, a good product to bring to market. So it's not a copy, and that I can actually appreciate. The way it works is you have 3 different sections or 3 different functions on the headlight. Right now I have it on the accent or the DRL function, where you have a horizontal bar on the top and the bottom, and you can hook that up to anything that you want. A switch in your dash, ignition, parking lights, whatever you want to activate the DRL function of this headlight. However, when we turn it to low beam, what turns on is that middle section of LEDs. And if you look closely at the projectors in front of the LEDs, they're not all the same. Some are round, some are oval. So they're really trying to do something unique with this headlight, and that's focus the light from the LEDs in a particular pattern. It's not just a big blob. And when we turn it on inside the room here against the wall, you'll see what kind of pattern this headlight makes. When we switch it from low beam to high beam, everything turns on. That gives us the maximum amount of light. And the reality is that with this many LEDs in these type of projectors, we're gonna get a decent amount of light, and they did that for sure. This is actually a pretty impressively bright headlight. The big problems that we have with it though is the coloring is way off. It's not suitable for nighttime driving at all, and there's not much of a beam pattern distinctiveness. It's the high beam is kind of a big blob. The low beam is a very big rectangle shape, and it doesn't do as good in a real headlight situation as most of the other headlights we have. Honestly, it's not DOT approved. You really shouldn't even be using it on the street anyway. On the front of the headlight, there are no markings. You don't know what side is top and what side is bottom. It doesn't say DOT or SAE or anything. It's just kind of typical from a Chinese product brought to America and just rebranded by whoever feels like it. There's almost zero regulation on this product whatsoever. They're just hoping that you don't get in trouble for using it. On the back side, this big heatsink design is actually has 2 functions. These fins help dissipate the heat to keep the LED system cool, but also the original intent of this headlight was that you would get it with a bracket system that mounted in here, and so you would just mount this headlight as an auxiliary light, and then somebody saw it and said, hey, that'd be a cool headlight, let's turn it into a headlight instead of an off-road light. So really what we're working with here is an off-road light that's been converted into a headlight form. On the back side, we have a pretty rugged waterproof rubber cable for the 4 power wires and a compression fitting style seal to keep all the water out. And right next to that is a moisture vent. The wiring that this headlight comes with though is less than ideal. You get a long cord, and sometimes that can be good, sometimes it can be bad, but depending on where you buy it from, you're either gonna get an H4 connector, which to work on a Jeep Wrangler, you'll need an anti-flicker harness, or you'll get an H13 connector designed to plug into the Jeep Wrangler, but you don't want that either because the anti-flicker harness goes from H4 to H13. So how are you going to install an anti-flicker harness if the headlight comes with an H13 connector but will still flicker? It kind of puts you in a tough spot there. Or you get it like this with the 4 bare wires coming out of it. So if you know what you're doing and you're comfortable with electronics, you can figure it out. But for most consumers, I feel like it's less than an ideal connector situation. It uses 15 5-watt Cree LED chips. This headlight has a 9 to 32 volt DC input rating and a mounting depth of only 2.25 inches. This headlight is not DOT approved. At low beam, it draws 1.2 amps of power at 12 volts DC, and on high beam, it draws 3.1 amps of power at 12 volts DC. At 25 feet, the maximum lux of this headlight is 158, and on high beam, this headlight creates 1,330 lux. The manufacturer's rating on low beam is 1,800 raw lumen, and on high beam, 3,800 raw lumen. This headlight is made in China and available in a black or chrome version. This is a really interesting beam pattern. Normally, when you think about a headlight, it's supposed to have kind of a wide and short beam and have a cutoff line. And this is just sort of like an oval shaped blob of light. And at first glance, it does look bright. I mean, if you were in a different vehicle coming at a vehicle with these headlights, it would look incredibly bright. But chances are you'd probably have to aim them way down like this to get your cutoff line. Otherwise, you know, if you have it centered on the road, you're going to be blinding everybody. At the brightest point of this headlight, at 25 feet, we're only getting 162 lux, which is barely enough to drive with. Most headlights we're testing are 400 to 600 lux at low beam. So this is easily one of the least bright headlights that we've tested. The beam pattern is not very wide. You see we can get the whole thing on this white wall at 25 feet. And it's incredibly blue. And a lot of people don't like that bluish color for their headlights. The high beam really redeems this headlight because we go all the way up to 1,330 lux at 25 feet. And obviously it's extremely bright, but all it's really doing is making the center section of the low beam a little bit larger and significantly brighter, but it doesn't give you two independent beam patterns like a headlight is supposed to. So yeah, it's extremely bright. There's no doubt you'll be able to see with this headlight setup, but you can see how it isn't quite as good as others that we've tested based on the beam pattern style. The biggest thing going for this headlight is it's really unique looking, and it's not the worst option. Kind of putting it roughly, but the reality is it is a non-compliant Chinese headlight that looks really cool, but it doesn't have the correct beam pattern to truly be extremely useful or road legal. This is the low beam, and you can see things are illuminated. It's going really far down the road. We're almost completely illuminating the 100-yard sign. But look at the lack of light on the left and right side of your screen. Even at the 10-yard mark, the optics are shooting light down the range, but they're missing really key areas that you need to have lit up to safely drive. When you turn on high beam, it does get pretty impressive. Tons and tons and tons of light up at the top of the tree past the 100-yard mark, and a lot more light in the foreground. But again, look at your ditches, especially right in front of your vehicle there. It's still practically nighttime at the 3 o'clock and 9 o'clock positions. Yeah, it puts out a lot of light. We have 1,330 lux and 5,600 lumen, but the design and the engineering just isn't up to par with other top tier headlights that are available. It's cheap, it looks cool, and that's as far as my recommendations go. Now that we're approaching the end of the video, I hope you know enough about the selection of 7-inch round LED headlights in the market today to make a decision. I'm not going to rank these best to worst. I'm going to let you make up your own decisions. All I will say is these 7 in front of me are probably the only 7 that I would ever recommend to anybody for anything. So, thank you very much for watching. Hope you were entertained a little bit. I hope you were really educated. And if you want to see what else we are doing with Headlight Revolution, visit our website, www.headlightrevolution.com. Subscribe to our channel so you don't miss our next set of videos. And of course, we'll see you next time. Thank you very much for watching.